Imagine reaching a level where nobody's rejection destroys you anymore, where loneliness no longer scares you, where your happiness no longer depends on attention, money, or people staying in your life. Most people spend their entire lives emotionally controlled by temporary things, constantly afraid of losing people, losing comfort, losing validation. But the moment your heart learns that Allah is enough, a strange peace enters your soul that this dunya can never take away. And maybe that is the peace your heart has been searching for all along. 1. Stop expecting people to heal the emptiness inside you. One of the deepest forms of emotional pain begins when your heart slowly starts depending on people more than Allah. Most people do not even realize this is happening to them. It starts very quietly. You begin attaching your happiness to someone's attention. Your mood starts depending on how they speak to you. Your peace depends on whether they reply, whether they stay consistent, whether they make you feel important. And little by little, your emotional stability moves from Allah's control into the hands of human beings. That is why some people feel destroyed over one cold message, one rejection, one person changing their energy. Because the heart was expecting from creation what only the Creator was meant to provide. You keep telling yourself that if somebody finally understands you completely, your emptiness will disappear. You believe that if somebody loves you enough, supports you enough, stays loyal enough, then your heart will finally feel safe. But the painful truth is that no human being was created to carry the weight of your entire emotional peace. People are weak themselves. They are struggling too. Their feelings change. Their priorities change. Even good people disappoint sometimes without meaning to. And when your happiness depends too heavily on people, you begin living in constant fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of being replaced, fear of being ignored, fear of not being enough. You overthink small changes in behavior. You read conversations again and again in your mind. You become emotionally exhausted trying to keep people close because deep inside you believe losing them means losing your peace. But Allah never created your heart to live like this. This dunya itself is temporary. Every relationship in this world can change overnight. Some people leave without explanation. Some people slowly drift away. Some people love you sincerely but still cannot heal the emptiness inside you, because that emptiness was never designed to be filled by creation in the first place. Real peace begins the moment you stop expecting humans to save your soul. And this does not mean you stop loving people. Islam does not teach coldness. Islam teaches balance. Love people, but do not worship their presence emotionally. Appreciate people, but never depend on them more than Allah. Because the moment your heart becomes too attached to creation, your peace becomes fragile. Mufti Menk often reminds us that when Allah is enough for you, people lose the power to emotionally destroy you. Think about that deeply. Imagine reaching a level where somebody leaving your life no longer breaks your identity. Imagine having a heart so connected to Allah that even during loneliness, disappointment, or rejection, you still feel emotionally protected. That kind of peace is rare today. Because most people are starving for validation from creation while neglecting their connection with the Creator. The closer you become to Allah, the less desperate your heart becomes for people. You stop chasing attention. You stop begging for love. You stop trying to force yourself into places where you are not valued. Your heart slowly relaxes because it finally understands that the one who controls all hearts is Allah Himself. And maybe that is the lesson your pain has been trying to teach you all along. Maybe Allah allowed certain people to disappoint you so your heart would return back to Him. Because sometimes the greatest mercy Allah gives you is removing your emotional dependence on people before it completely destroys your peace. 2. Train yourself to enjoy simple things. One of the biggest reasons people feel constantly unhappy today is because their minds have been trained to believe that peace only comes from big things. Big success, big money, big attention, big achievements. The dunya keeps teaching you that happiness must always be loud, expensive, dramatic, and visible to other people. Social media especially makes this disease worse. You scroll through endless images of people showing perfect lifestyles, perfect relationships, perfect moments, and slowly your heart begins feeling like your own life is not enough. You stop appreciating ordinary blessings because your mind becomes addicted to stimulation. A quiet day feels boring, a simple life feels embarrassing, silence feels uncomfortable. And without realizing it, your soul becomes restless because it no longer knows how to feel grateful for small things. But real peace has never lived inside luxury alone. Some of the richest people in this world are emotionally miserable. They have money but cannot sleep peacefully. They have fame but still feel empty inside. They have attention from millions of people, yet still feel lonely when they are alone at night. Why? Because happiness was never simply about owning more. The heart was created for something deeper than temporary excitement. Mufti Menk often reminds people that contentment is one of the greatest forms of wealth. A person who can enjoy simple blessings has already escaped a huge prison that traps most of society. Because once your happiness depends on constant entertainment, constant validation, and constant excitement, your peace becomes extremely fragile. Think about the moments when your heart actually felt calm. Maybe it was after sincere dua. Maybe it was sitting quietly after prayer. Maybe it was laughing with family without pretending to be someone else. Maybe it was walking alone while talking to Allah inside your heart. Maybe it was one peaceful morning where your chest felt light for no worldly reason at all. Those moments matter more than people realize, because they prove your soul does not actually need endless dunya to feel alive. The problem is that many people have trained themselves to ignore simple blessings. They rush through life so fast that they no longer notice the mercy around them. Clean water, safety, a functioning body, the ability to pray, the ability to breathe without pain, a quiet room, food on the table. These things seem small until Allah takes them away from someone. And that is why grateful people often look more peaceful than wealthy people. Because gratitude slows the heart down. It teaches you to see beauty in ordinary moments. It teaches your soul that peace is not always hiding in the future. Sometimes peace is already around you, but your distracted mind cannot see it. Training yourself to enjoy simple things also protects you emotionally. When your heart only depends on expensive pleasures or human attention, you suffer deeply whenever those things disappear. But when your soul learns to enjoy simplicity, life becomes lighter. You stop needing constant approval to feel valuable. You stop comparing your life every second. You stop chasing every distraction, trying to escape yourself. And slowly, your relationship with Allah becomes sweeter, because simple hearts connect with Allah easier. A heart drowning in dunya becomes noisy, but a heart that finds beauty in simplicity becomes soft, grateful, and emotionally calm. That is why some people own very little yet radiate peace wherever they go. Their happiness is not chained to possessions. Their peace is not controlled by trends. Their hearts are not addicted to being impressed all the time. They learn something this dunya rarely teaches. The less your soul depends on temporary things, the more freedom your heart begins to feel. 3. Stop chasing people who make you forget your worth. One of the most painful things a person can do to themselves is continue chasing people who continuously make them feel emotionally small. There are people who slowly destroy your peace, not because they openly hate you, but because they keep you trapped in confusion. One day they make you feel important. The next day they become distant. One day they give you attention. The next day they act like you no longer matter. And because your heart became emotionally attached, you keep trying harder and harder to win back the same energy they once gave you freely. This is how emotional exhaustion begins. You start overthinking everything. You stare at your phone, wondering why they changed. You replay conversations in your head, searching for what you did wrong. You begin blaming yourself for someone else's inconsistency. And slowly, without noticing it, you lose your self-respect, trying to keep people who were never emotionally stable enough to protect your heart in the first place. Many people are suffering today because they became addicted to chasing validation. They keep trying to prove their worth to people who already decided not to value them properly. And the more they chase, the more empty they feel inside, because the human heart was never designed to beg endlessly for love from creation. Mufti Menk often reminds us that your worth does not decrease simply because somebody failed to recognize it. Think about how many people destroy their confidence because of rejection. Someone ignores them, leaves them, replaces them, or stops appreciating them, and suddenly they begin questioning their entire value as a human being. But why should your worth depend on unstable people? Why should your peace depend on somebody whose own emotions change every week? The problem is not always that you love people too much. Sometimes the problem is that you forgot to love yourself with dignity. Islam teaches kindness, mercy, and patience, but it does not teach emotional slavery. It does not teach you to destroy yourself trying to keep people who constantly disrespect your peace. Some people only know your value after they lose access to you. Some people become comfortable hurting you because they know you will always come back. And sometimes Allah allows this pain to continue until you finally learn the lesson your heart has been avoiding. Stop chasing people who are comfortable watching you suffer. Because the more desperately you chase people, the more power you hand over to them emotionally. Your happiness begins depending on their replies, their attention, their mood, their behavior. You wake up anxious, you sleep emotionally drained. One small change in their energy ruins your entire day. This is not peace, this is emotional captivity. And many people stay trapped there for years because they fear loneliness more than disrespect. But loneliness is not what destroys people the most. Constant humiliation destroys people. Constant emotional confusion destroys people. Begging for bare minimum love destroys people. Trying to earn love from emotionally unavailable people destroys people. And maybe lately Allah has been showing you signs that certain people are no longer healthy for your soul. The conversations feel heavy now. Your chest feels tired after speaking to them. You constantly feel anxious instead of peaceful. Deep inside, your heart already knows the connection is damaging you, but your attachment keeps convincing you to stay. This is why emotional attachment can blind people. You begin accepting treatment you would never normally tolerate because you became afraid of losing the person. You excuse disrespect. You ignore red flags. You keep lowering your standards just to avoid being abandoned. And eventually you wake up one day realizing you sacrificed your peace trying to keep somebody who never truly protected your heart. But Allah did not create you to spend your life begging for crumbs of attention. You were created with dignity. You were created with value. And the moment you truly understand that your rizq, your peace, your future, and your worth are all controlled by Allah, something powerful begins happening inside you. You stop panicking over who leaves. You stop chasing people who constantly drain you. You stop forcing connections that only survive because you keep overextending yourself emotionally. Because you finally realize anything meant for you will never require you to destroy yourself to keep it. A healthy connection should not constantly make you feel anxious, unwanted, or emotionally unstable. Real love brings sakina. Real love protects your dignity. Real love does not force you to beg for reassurance every day. And sometimes walking away from certain people is not weakness. Sometimes it is the first act of self-respect your soul has shown itself in years. It hurts at first, yes. Detachment is painful when your heart has been emotionally dependent for a long time. You will miss them. You will remember old memories. Part of you will still hope they suddenly change. But healing begins the moment you stop feeding the attachment that keeps reopening your wounds. And slowly, Allah replaces the noise inside your chest with clarity. You begin breathing easier. You begin thinking clearer. You begin reconnecting with yourself again. Most importantly, you begin reconnecting with Allah instead of making people your emotional center. Because when Allah becomes enough for your heart, you stop chasing people who make you forget your worth. And that is one of the most powerful forms of freedom a human being can experience. 4. Accept that everything in dunya is temporary. One of the biggest reasons human beings suffer emotionally is because they keep trying to hold temporary things as if they were permanent. Deep inside, people already know this dunya changes constantly, but the heart still becomes shocked every time something disappears. Someone leaves, a relationship changes, money becomes unstable, health declines, a beautiful phase of life suddenly ends. And every time this happens, many people feel emotionally destroyed because they built their peace on things that were never guaranteed to stay forever. This dunya was designed to change. That is its nature. Nothing here remains the same. The people you once spoke to every day may become strangers one day. The things you once cried over may become memories that no longer affect you years later. The happiness you once thought would last forever can disappear overnight. Even sadness itself does not stay forever. Life keeps moving, seasons keep changing, people keep changing. And perhaps one of the hardest lessons for the human heart is accepting that attachment to temporary things will always create pain. Mufti Menk often reminds us that this world is not Jannah. It was never created to fully satisfy your soul. Yet many people secretly expect permanent peace from temporary things. They expect relationships to always remain perfect. They expect life to always feel stable. They expect people to always understand them. And when reality changes, they feel betrayed by life itself. Allah never promised this dunya would remain comfortable forever. In fact, one of the greatest signs of maturity is learning how to enjoy blessings without becoming emotionally enslaved by them. This does not mean you stop loving people. It does not mean you stop appreciating beautiful moments. It simply means your heart stops worshipping temporary things. Because the moment your happiness becomes completely dependent on dunya, fear enters your life. Fear of losing people, fear of aging, fear of failure, fear of change, fear of being alone, fear of uncertainty. And fear slowly steals your peace even before anything actually disappears. Look at how many people cannot enjoy the blessings they currently have because they are too busy fearing the future. Even during happy moments, anxiety follows them because deep inside they know everything in this dunya can change. And instead of bringing their hearts closer to Allah, they become more emotionally attached to the creation itself. But real emotional strength begins when your heart accepts the reality of impermanence. The moment you truly understand that everything belongs to Allah, your perspective changes. You stop acting like you own people forever. You stop believing situations will never change. You stop expecting dunya to behave like paradise. And strangely, this acceptance actually brings more peace into your life. Because when you accept that life changes, you stop collapsing every time change arrives. You begin telling yourself, if Allah removes something, He can replace it. If people leave, Allah still remains. If a chapter ends, my life is not over. That mindset creates a powerful kind of emotional stability. Many people today are emotionally drowning because they built their identity around temporary things. Some people build their identity around relationships, others around money, beauty, popularity, or social approval. And when those things change, they no longer know who they are. This is why some people completely lose themselves after heartbreak, failure, or loss. Their entire emotional foundation was built on unstable things. But when your identity is rooted in your relationship with Allah, life becomes different. Loss still hurts, yes. Islam does not teach us to become emotionless. Even the prophets felt sadness. Even righteous people cried. But there is a difference between feeling pain and becoming destroyed by pain. A heart attached to Allah bends during hardship, but does not completely break. Because deep inside it knows this dunya was always temporary anyway. Think about how quickly life changes. The people you cried for years ago may no longer even cross your mind today. Situations you once believed would destroy you completely eventually became lessons that made you stronger. The pain that once kept you awake at night slowly faded with time. This alone proves that Allah designed life to move forward, no matter how permanent your emotions may feel in certain moments. And maybe that is why clinging too tightly to dunya creates suffering. Because you are trying to freeze something Allah created to constantly move. Sometimes Allah removes people because your heart became too dependent on them. Sometimes He changes your situation because your soul was becoming too attached to comfort. Sometimes He allows uncertainty because certainty in dunya can make people forget Him. And perhaps one of the deepest forms of peace is reaching a point where your heart says, Ya Allah, if this blessing remains, I am grateful. If it leaves, I trust You. That level of trust changes everything, because now your peace is no longer chained to outcomes. You stop panicking over every change. You stop acting like every ending is the end of your life. You stop desperately trying to control things that were never fully in your control anyway. Most people are emotionally exhausted because they are fighting reality itself. They want people never to change. They want life never to become difficult. They want comfort without tests. But dunya was built on change, tests, endings, and uncertainty. The sooner your heart accepts this, the lighter your soul becomes. And strangely, once you stop trying to make dunya permanent, you finally begin appreciating it properly. You enjoy moments without desperately clinging to them. You love people without worshipping them emotionally. You become grateful for blessings without acting entitled to them. And your heart slowly becomes calmer because it finally understands nothing in this dunya was ever meant to stay forever except your relationship with Allah. That is the only connection that never abandons you, the only love that never becomes unstable, the only source of peace untouched by time, loss, distance, or death. And when your soul truly understands that, you stop fearing change the way you used to, because even if everything changes around you, Allah remains the same. 5. The happiest people are the ones who need the least. One of the greatest lies this dunya constantly tells people is that happiness is hiding in having more money, more attention, more followers, more luxury, more validation, more possessions. The world trains people to believe they are always one achievement away from finally feeling complete. So they spend their entire lives chasing the next thing, hoping that once they finally reach it, their hearts will finally rest. But the frightening truth is that many people reach everything they once dreamed about and still feel empty inside. Because the human heart was never designed to find permanent peace in temporary things. That is why some people have beautiful houses but no emotional peace. Some people are surrounded by attention yet still feel painfully lonely. Some people look successful in front of the world but secretly feel exhausted every night. The dunya keeps feeding desires, but desires never truly end. The more the heart becomes addicted to needing things, the more restless it becomes. Mufti Menk often reminds us that contentment is one of the greatest treasures a person can have. Not because contentment means you stop working hard or stop improving your life, but because it protects your heart from becoming emotionally enslaved by dunya. There is a huge difference between using dunya and worshipping dunya emotionally. Some people own things. Other people are owned by the things they chase. And many people do not realize they are emotionally trapped until they lose something. The moment attention disappears, they collapse. The moment money becomes difficult, they panic. The moment somebody stops validating them, they feel worthless. Why? Because their happiness was never internal. It was borrowed from temporary things around them. But the happiest people are often the ones whose hearts need the least from this world to feel alive. Look at the people who radiate peace naturally. Usually they are not the loudest people, not the most obsessed with showing off, not the most desperate for attention. Their hearts are calmer because they are no longer constantly starving for more. They learned how to appreciate what they already have. They learned how to live without comparing themselves to everybody else. They learned how to enjoy life without making every desire a necessity. And this is one of the rarest forms of freedom, because needing less protects your peace. The less dependent you are on people's praise, the harder it becomes for people to control your emotions. The less attached you are to luxury, the less terrified you become of losing money. The less addicted you are to validation, the less anxiety you feel trying to impress the world. Many people today are emotionally exhausted, not because they have too little, but because their hearts constantly feel dissatisfied. No matter what they achieve, their mind immediately wants more. They cannot sit still. They cannot feel grateful. They cannot enjoy simple moments because comparison has poisoned their peace. Social media especially feeds this disease every single day. You open your phone and immediately your mind starts comparing. Somebody has more success. Somebody looks happier. Somebody travels more. Somebody has a better relationship. Somebody appears more attractive. And slowly your own blessings begin feeling smaller, not because Allah gave you less, but because comparison made you blind to what you already have. This is why gratitude is so powerful in Islam. Gratitude protects the heart from emotional greed. It teaches you to stop measuring your life only by what you lack. Because if you only focus on what is missing, you will never feel rich emotionally, no matter how much Allah gives you. There are people with very little who sleep peacefully every night because their hearts are content. And there are people with everything who cannot relax for even 1 hour because their souls are addicted to chasing more. True richness was never about possessions alone. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught that richness is the richness of the soul. Think deeply about that. A rich soul is not constantly desperate. It is not constantly starving for validation. It is not constantly panicking over dunya. A rich soul feels emotionally full because it trusts Allah. And maybe this is the missing piece many people have been searching for their entire lives. They kept trying to fix spiritual emptiness with worldly distractions. They kept trying to heal emotional pain through attention, entertainment, relationships, shopping, status, or temporary pleasures. But temporary things can only distract the soul for a little while. Eventually silence returns. Eventually emptiness returns. Eventually the heart realizes that nothing in dunya can fully satisfy it without Allah. That is why people who are deeply connected to Allah often carry a strange calmness inside them even during hardship. Their peace does not completely collapse when life becomes difficult because their hearts were never fully dependent on dunya to begin with. They understand something many people never learn. Everything in this world can disappear at any moment. Money can disappear, beauty can fade, people can leave, health can change. Status can collapse overnight. But the person whose happiness depends entirely on those things will always live in fear. Fear becomes the price of attachment. The more attached you become to temporary things, the more terrified you become of losing them. But when your heart learns contentment, life becomes lighter. You stop chasing every trend trying to feel important. You stop exhausting yourself trying to impress people who are already busy trying to impress others themselves. You stop measuring your worth through likes, attention, or material success. And for the first time in a long time, your soul begins breathing again. Many people think peace comes from gaining more control over life, but often peace comes from surrendering control to Allah instead, accepting that your rizq is already written, accepting that your value is not determined by people, accepting that Allah knows what your soul needs better than you do. This mindset changes everything emotionally, because now your happiness is no longer chained to outcomes. If Allah gives, you are grateful. If Allah withholds, you still trust Him. If people stay, you appreciate them. If people leave, you do not completely fall apart. That kind of emotional balance is rare today because society constantly teaches emotional dependence instead of spiritual strength. People are taught to consume endlessly, compare endlessly, chase endlessly, and desire endlessly. Very few are taught how to simply be at peace. But Islam teaches something beautiful. The calmer your relationship with dunya becomes, the calmer your heart becomes. And this does not mean you stop dreaming, working, or improving yourself. Islam encourages growth, but your soul must never become addicted to dunya in the process. Your goals should remain in your hands, not become chains around your heart. Because the moment dunya enters too deeply into the heart, peace begins leaving quietly. And perhaps some of the unhappiness you feel today is not because Allah gave you too little, but because your soul became overwhelmed by too many unnecessary emotional needs. You thought you needed everyone to understand you. You thought you needed constant attention. You thought you needed more money before allowing yourself to feel peace. You thought you needed perfect circumstances before allowing yourself to feel grateful. But maybe peace was never waiting at the end of endless desires. Maybe peace begins the moment your soul finally says, Ya Allah, whatever you have already given me is enough to remain grateful. That sentence alone can heal a heart drowning in dissatisfaction. Because contentment is not weakness, it is emotional mastery. It is the ability to remain peaceful, even when dunya refuses to give you everything you want. And honestly, some of the happiest moments in life are usually the simplest ones. Sitting peacefully after prayer, laughing sincerely with loved ones, making dua late at night, feeling emotionally safe with Allah even while life feels uncertain around you. Those moments cannot always be bought. They come from a heart that no longer needs excessive dunya to feel alive. And perhaps that is why the happiest people are not always the ones who own the most. Sometimes they are simply the ones whose hearts finally learned, Allah is enough. Maybe the real goal in life was never to have everything. Maybe it was to reach a level where your heart stays peaceful, even when life changes. Because people will leave, money will come and go. This dunya will never remain the same. But the heart connected to Allah will always find a way back to peace. So stop exhausting your soul chasing temporary things that can never fully complete you. Train your heart to depend on Allah more than dunya, and you will discover a kind of happiness that no loss can destroy. May Allah remove the emptiness from your heart, replace your anxiety with peace, and make your soul content with Him alone. Ameen.